Welcome back. Hardklop FM, formerly known as the NBC's Afrikaans radio service, is one of the public broadcasters' 11 language stations, and it broadcasts, of course, in Afrikaans. The Afrikaans service of the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation became the first service since independence to be transformed from the former NBC Afrikaans radio service on the 27th of November 2017. NBC Afrikaans' radio program dubbed Hardklop FM means heartbeat in Afrikaans. Its motto is Leef in Afrikaans, which translates to live in Afrikaans. Joining me in studio with more on the station, I'm joined by Andries Mouton, senior producer at Hardklop FM. Hartlike goeiemôre Andries en baie welkom by Good Morning Namibia.
Hartlike goeiemôre, baie dankie Denver. And good morning to the listeners and the viewers as well.
It's lovely to have you in this space.
It is, yeah. I must say it's not that much different to radio, except that one of my colleagues has a saying that he has the perfect face for radio.
Yes.
Which obviously is a good thing if you have a good face for radio. And in radio it actually means to voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It means that you should not be there where you are seen by other people.
Yes, and that places a very interesting perspective on what we do, because whatever seed we sow, we cannot see who we are sowing it to. We are just doing what should and could be done on radio.
You are sowing and they are reaping. But the point also is you can't unsow once you've sowed.
Yes, exactly. And then you've got to live with whatever you sowed. You've got to reap that first, and if you want to reap differently, you've got to sow differently.
I'm deeply concerned, Andries, that we are going to get carried away because that is also not a strange phenomenon to the two of us.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Let's unpack the transition from Afrikaans radio service to Hardklop FM. What exactly changed?
I think perceptions changed since independence. And I think perceptions changed about the whatever value was given to a specific language. And I think once a language was conferred to somebody, I mean, you are Oshivambu speaking or you are Damaranama speaking, that places you in a specific box. And I think what happened with the renaming of all the language services of the NBC, it actually unboxed, it actually lifted a lid on possibilities of particular radio stations. So, for example, it was really good listening to some of the managers earlier today, and the cross promotion that is taking place, and the multilingualism, whatever. Sorry, you've got to help me with the English. I'm actually Afrikaans. So, people able to talk different languages or at least understand it. So, say for example, if there is a program in Omerari and I understand some Oshireru, then I tune into that. Or if I understand Setswana, then I can tune into that. And the fortunate thing for Afrikaans as a language in Namibia, it is understood at least quite widely. And that places a very big responsibility on a station like Hardklop FM. And that also gives us an opportunity where the perception was that Afrikaans used to be a divisive language that divides, is actually now a way of people to communicate, because that is the fundamental thing of language, is to communicate, because without language you and I won't be able to sit here and talk, and well, where's the viewers, because they won't be able to understand. It's about communication.
I think there is general consensus, Andries, that despite English being the only official language as per the supreme law of the land, that Afrikaans does remain within many contexts the lingua franca of this land.
It is true, and I'm grateful for that, because that is my mother tongue. And if it was possible, I would have given all languages, not just Afrikaans, I mean all languages in the world, that privilege to be able to develop fully. I mean, Afrikaans has had the opportunity to develop as a scientific language as well, and I think that has made the whole scientific issues around COVID much easier for a language as Afrikaans. And when I talk to my colleagues at some of the other language services, it's very difficult to
They have to resort to English for some of the scientific terms.
Or you have to tell a story just to explain one word. But that's also another thing we have of a lot of languages, and I think that's one of the things that Afrikaans actually learned from the other languages in Namibia is to be able to tell stories.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Many, many, many moons ago, I had the honor and distinct privilege to say, amongst others, the following. 061 of 8 and sê jou sê goeiemiddag.
Yes.
That's one of the flagship shows of Hardklop FM. Please walk us through that one's relevance, but also the others, please.
Sê jou sê means you can have your say. And people like to have themselves heard. And it's not about being egotistical. It's about either having a problem, either having an opinion, and just to be heard. And sometimes when people hear themselves talk, they actually hear their own opinion, and then they can actually say, okay, there is value to that, or really there is no value to it. And Sê jou sê gives an opportunity for Namibians to actually say what is on their mind, but in a responsible way. And because of your involvement in the program, you will remember how many people that's phoning in, Afrikaans is not their first language. But that does not deter them or make them not want to use this particular platform to actually make themselves heard. But that also places, a program like that also places a big responsibility on the management of your station, because through that you can actually realize, listen, this is where information is still needed. Say, for example, you hear somebody give an opinion about an insurance company that is, in their opinion, defrauding them. But it's sometimes because they don't know how it works. So you have to have that information about financial intelligence, like you had an interview earlier this morning. Or people wasting water. Then you have to have a program actually telling people, listen, water is a very scarce resource. And then people would like to know what is going on with the celebs like you guys.
And you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with radio, it disguises my grey hair. Where
Mine is very visible.
Yes, and now mine as well.
Yes,
but
your secret is out.
It's out, yeah. So with all of that, I think the main thing is there's opportunity in radio. We have our own morning show with the Perfect Face for Radio. We have a program where relatively old people can talk in and have a sort of a communication with each other, because they are not that mobile, literally and figuratively.
Goeiewense, goeiemôre.
Exactly.
Goeiemôre, Andries, the announcer would say.
Exactly, yes. And that helps build a community. And that helps keeping the links, holding society together, because in that way radio is the sort of the fiber of the community. And that's why I'm really excited to hear what my colleague from Watu FM is going to say about the influence of radio in communal areas.
Let's talk about the theme for this year's commemoration of World Radio Day. In radio we trust. What does it mean for you? But what do you think it means in general for listeners, but also announcers?
It places a big role on your credibility. And all the credibility you then use to gather information. Because a lot of the sources we as producers have access to, say for example, Tansan van Christiana, she doesn't have it. Or Oom Piet van Pit Sonder Water. He does not have...
van Kois.
Exactly, yes. Or van Gogas, or van Rehoboth, wherever. And sometimes it can be that people are in a way lazy to go and do some investigation or reading up for themselves, but that still places a big responsibility on radio to be truthful. And sometimes you cannot kill all lies. The best way to kill a lie is to just keep on telling the truth and to keep on giving the correct information. So you cannot go on debunking forever, because that in itself is then you get nowhere. just by debunking things. And I think that is why radio plays such an important role in the Namibian context, because to the best of our abilities, we try to tell what is really happening. We also try to give as much exposure to ideas as is possible. But I mean, if somebody is telling you a red pen is actually blue, then you've got to take and make the decision. You cannot, I won't say allow, on the public discourse to say that something that is actually blue is actually red.
You've got to take a stance.
You've got to take a stance. And in a way, that is what places another big responsibility on radio, if we are to be trusted, that we've got to keep on saying, listen, this is actually blue, not red, or whatever the case may be. And because once you erode trust, and because you can have as many disclaimers as you want on air, saying whatever this listeners are saying on Hardklop FM is not necessarily the stance of Hardklop FM.
Or the NBC.
Or the NBC. It is still heard on NBC. It is still heard on Hardklop FM. And in a way, you've got to be careful, because that erodes trust.
And once it is eroded, it's gone.
Exactly. But the flip side of the coin can also be, because you give opportunity for people to talk, then that also creates trust. So it's a very fine line that you've got to tiptoe on.
In the spirit of the diversity that Hardklop FM stands for, I want us to also acknowledge a Hinsley from Tsumeb, or George from Oshakati, and that is exactly what Hardklop is all about.
Exactly.
Yeah. As we've run out of time, unfortunately, you mentioned the pandemic at the start of our conversation this morning. Talk to us about the role that radio played to allay the fears, but also to address the avalanche of misinformation and misleading information that we unfortunately, intermittently continue to witness and experience.
That is a statement in itself, and not really just a question. And the advantage we have in media, I mean, you know that putting together this 3 hours of this morning's program actually took quite a few people a whole day's work to put on. So once you start to do research, looking up sources, the credibility of sources, that helps you in what you put on air. So we cannot kill or debunk myths or lies the whole time. So the responsibility and the way we actually want, or are actually striving to do with this whole pandemic, is just to say what is really true. What is true? Go and read. Go and do research. Look at resources that is also trustworthy. But be aware of what is not on the fringe of what is actually going on. And sometimes I want to just kill my phone with all the information people are sending me, asking for information. Listen, we've heard there's a chip in the
vaccine.
In the vaccine, your brain gets rewired. All of that, it's just impossible to debunk all of that.
Are you saying there's no chip in the vaccine?
I don't know, but what I do know is that I still can't speak Chinese fluently after taking the vaccine, and I still haven't grown an extra finger on my left hand, which was actually promised to me.
My Mandarin proficiency is equally non-existent following a booster shot. Andries, die regisseur is besig om baie kwaad te raak. Any final thoughts this morning?
For the viewers, thank you for switching to radio sometimes. And thank you for actually supporting radio during the COVID-19. The popularity of especially our phone-in programs have increased many folds because of the pandemic, and because radio helps people stay in contact with each other. Thank you.
Baie dankie vir radio het by TV kom inloer het.
Groot plesier.
That was Andries Mouton, Hardklop FM's senior producer, talking to us about all matters radio and all matters Afrikaans. We'll be right back after a brief break.